back, everyone, to another episode of the GEB America podcast, which we release a new episode every single Tuesday. And this month of March is National Women's History Month, and so we wanted to feature some great guests that are doing some pretty incredible things in their careers and in ministry. And today our guest is Ashley Key. Ashley is the co-host of the 700 Club on CBN. You can see her pretty much anywhere in the world, and she's also the co-host of the 700 Club Interactive. Welcome, Ashley, to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really grateful to be here. Thank you so much.
We know you're busy because I will see your programming and I'm like, there she is again. There she is again. So thank you for taking a few minutes out of your busy day.
Of course. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so we do this with everybody. Take us back.
Okay.
The origin story. How did you first know you had an interest in media, being in front of the camera, producing? Where did that all begin?
Gosh, well, I did not know that this was going to be my calling, or I did not plan for this. I tell people all the time, it's like God had a plan, I had another plan, and thank God his plan prevailed. But yeah, I did not plan for this. I went to James Madison University in Virginia. I'm from the kind of Virginia Beach area. Did theater in high school, but it was never something that I felt like I wanted to pursue. I did not want to be a starving actress in, either LA or New York. It wasn't a deep passion for me. I enjoyed it. It was something that I think I was good at, but it wasn't anything that I felt like I should pursue wholeheartedly. So with that, go to college, came in undeclared, considered being a history major, realized it was just too much research and writing. I was like, nah, it's more of like, I'm just like a history buff on the side. But then I found myself really interested in communications, but at JMU, it's not the typical communications degree where you're learning about broadcast. You're learning like communication theory and all of that stuff. But what stuck out to me specifically was public relations. I was like, I like this. And then as I'm, taking more public relations courses, determining that was my concentration out of my communications degree, I got my hand, I dabbled into social media. So, how do you communicate for an organization through social media? And it's also kind of different. I mean, it was different. I don't know how it is now at JMU, but there was a whole other marketing, degree. And then there was communications. Social media is kind of like in between, right? It's like PR, but also marketing as well. Mm-hmm. But I had the communications background and studies. So anyways, did that. I managed social media for a very small nonprofit. They were like based out of California, and I was over here on the East Coast. But they were a Christian organization. They advocated awareness for gendercide, which is basically like the systematic elimination of women in countries like India and China, where they find out they're having a girl and they either get an abortion or they commit infanticide. So it's pretty intense. And so that's a whole other God story of how I even found out about that organization. I watched this documentary on Netflix, saw these organizations that are trying to help with this issue. Give Her Life was the organization that I got connected with, was trying, manage their social media. So that got my foot in the door at CBN because I was graduating. I knew I did not want to move away from this area quite yet. And so I was just, kind of wondering, okay, well, what jobs might be in my area? And my pastors at the time, she worked at CBN. And so I remembered, I was like, oh yeah, she has a communications degree. Let me check it out. Well, lo and behold, there was a social media position open. I worked in social media I was one of the social media producers for the 700 Club for about 3.5 years. And then different doors started opening to me to move kind of more on camera because me and my coworker, my colleague, she was also a social media manager for the 700 Club social media. We would basically interview the guests that would be on the 700 Club that day. We would interview them for like 10 minutes max for Facebook. It was like, that's when Facebook Live was like blowing up and everyone was on Facebook Live. Because we were like, well, we recognize that maybe not everyone who follows us on Facebook is watching the live broadcast. So let's bring the guests to them. And so that kind of got, my feet wet with interacting with people and interviewing people. And then from there, I was given the opportunity to kind of create different campaigns geared towards more of a younger audience. And so I was host and producer for two series called Unhooked. The first one was Unhooked Holy in a Hookup World. The second one was Unhooked Purity in a Pornified World. So we really talked about those like taboo topics that like you don't hear, pastors in the pulpit really talking much about.
Right.
Singleness, hookup culture, pornography.
Yeah.
How do you, as a single individual, Christian man or woman, walk in purity in today's really not purified, holy culture? So those really opened the door for them to say, oh, okay, I think she has what it takes. Let's see if she can host. And so that was kind of a process as well. I was only hosting, I was like backup host and then everyday host. So, and it eventually led me to become, now I host 700 Club Interactive every day. And then on Wednesdays, I host the 700 Club. So I'm definitely grateful for that. That's probably way too much information than you even needed or wanted, but that's kind of like
No.
the story of how I got to where I am today.
Well, and I think it's great to hear those stories of God opening doors and putting you in a position that you couldn't have done it without his help.
Absolutely not.
And that's encouraging to people, I know, because sometimes that, like you said, 3.5 years doing social media, that wasn't 3 months.
Exactly.
So you had to be faithful. You could have gotten in a year or two in and said, they're not recognizing. I don't feel like I'm moving up. I'm going to go and do something else. And and that's really good. So I'm curious, did you have any on-camera experience? What was kind of that? Was that a bit of a transition to get comfortable with doing that?
So interesting enough, I had one other on-camera experience. I had such a great internship with it sounds so odd, but it's the Newport News shipbuilding. So in our area, there's like two huge shipyards. There's the Norfolk and then the Newport News. I was able to get an internship at the Newport News, and they actually have a whole communications department. The manager of that department came from local news. So he created something called Focus NNS. And so it was like an internal, almost like TV program highlighting different people in the shipyard who have been there for like 50 years, have done some really amazing things. And so every intern that came in for the summer, you would have to do stories for this like internal TV show essentially. So that was my first experience writing my own stuff, memorizing, intros and outros and walking shots and that sort of thing. So that was my very first kind of like newsy anchor experience. But other than that, I just had experience on stage in theater.
Right.
And then that's it. That's really it.